In 2019, mechanical engineer William Osmond was trying to figure out how to make use of a common waste product, sawdust. A walk in the park left him thinking, people eat plants all the time, so why not eat trees? Osmond decided to use sawdust as a cheap alternative for a food ingredient. Considering the American food most resembling an actual piece of wood is the Rice Krispie treat, Osmond decided to test just how much of the crisp rice he could replace with sawdust without consumers noticing. Incredibly, he found you could replace 15% of the rice with sawdust without too noticeable of a difference in the final treat.
No idea. No way.
That's indistinguishable.
I have literally no idea there's sawdust in here. That's amazing.
Osmond's switcheroo was very clever, but pales in comparison to the gigantic switcheroo pulled on our global food supply over the past 100 years that would lead to today's people switching out a very common type of food that we had eaten for thousands of years in favor of something edible but foreign to the human diet, and as I'll argue here, maybe even toxic, vegetable oil.
Mazola corn oil.
Crisco oil.
Vegetable corn and sunflower oil.
Low-cost vegetable oil is in everything from packaged foods to restaurants and kitchens across the world.
Vegetable oil.
Canola oil.
Vegetable oil. Canola oil.
As consumption of vegetable oils exploded, rates of obesity and diabetes happened to explode with it. To understand why some doctors and scientists are saying vegetable oils make us fat and diseased, we need to take a look at some history, why some animals live longer than others, some tapes hidden in a basement, how vegetable oils are actually made, and what happens in your body when you eat them. Let's start in 1829. Thanks to new machinery, it became practical to make use of the leftover garbage from cotton production, cotton seeds. The oil extracted from cottonseed could be used as fuel for lamps or lubricant for machinery. In the early 1880s, Thomas Hudnut invented a mechanical way to extract oil from corn germ. Up until then, corn germ was a byproduct that corn refiners threw away. In 1898, corn oil started to be used as commercial cooking oil. And in 1902, the Hudnut mills were selling 36 million gallons of corn oil per year. In 1911, the soap maker Procter & Gamble came out with a new product, crystallized cottonseed oil. Crisco looked a lot like the common cooking fat, lard. Before 1900 or so, everyone used virtually 100% animal fats to cook. But Procter & Gamble figured their newer, cheaper product, Crisco, looked a lot like lard, so why not get people to eat Crisco instead? They launched a massive marketing campaign presenting their cottonseed oil product as the newer and cleaner cooking fat that made cheap, better-tasting foods. In 1911, Procter & Gamble spent about $5 million worth of today's money to advertise Crisco, and it became popular immediately. Just the next year, in 1912, sales of Crisco amounted to 2,600,000 pounds. That same year, in 1912, James B. Herrick published a paper on what is thought to be the first heart attack accurately described in a medical journal. You see, heart disease was actually a very rare condition before the 1900s or so. Crisco continued to ramp up their advertising, and in 1916, Crisco sales had reached 60 million pounds.
When the heart stops beating, death is not in fact instantaneous.
In 1924, heart disease was rising, and the American Heart Association, the AHA, was founded but remained quite small and poorly funded for quite a while. In 1945, soybean oil reached 1.3 billion pounds produced, overtaking cottonseed oil as the leading edible oil in the United States. In 1948, the American Heart Association finally got its big break when Procter & Gamble, the makers of Crisco, designated the AHA to receive the $1.7 million from Procter & Gamble's radio contest.
And as the American Heart Association's own history book reads, it says, and overnight millions poured into our coffers.
Heart disease was still on the rise, and in 1955, President Dwight Eisenhower had a heart attack, and the public was painfully aware of just how big a deal heart disease was. Then, just 6 years later in 1961, the American Heart Association had the answer to heart disease. The AHA recommended everyone to replace saturated fats like those found in animal fat with the polyunsaturated fats like those found in vegetable oils to prevent heart attack and stroke.
It's 94% unsaturated. No oil is lower.
By the way, saturated fat consumption didn't really correlate with rates of heart disease before or after 1961 when the AHA made their recommendation. And remember, we ate close to 0 grams of polyunsaturated fat-rich vegetable oils before 1900 when heart disease was rare.
Okay, so we went from 0 in 1865 to 80 grams a day. Now let me just say, this is an infinite increase in vegetable oil consumption. That makes this the single greatest change to nutrition in all of history. I don't think anything else can even begin to compare. A third of our diet is coming out of factories that make these oils.
Just like all these odd corn oil ads wanted us to do, we added huge amounts of polyunsaturated fat to our diet. And today, edible oil is now a $100 billion industry. So, is this massive increase in polyunsaturated fat-rich vegetable oil actually bad or just benign? You can find various anecdotes here and there of people clearing up ailments as bad as arthritis or irritable bowel syndrome and losing plenty of weight by removing vegetable oils from their diet. Molecular biologist Brad Marshall even came up with a croissant diet where he totally removed vegetable oils from his diet and lost plenty of stubborn weight while eating croissants. Even Dr. Kate Shanahan, nutritionist for the LA Lakers, removed vegetable oils from their diet plan. But these are just anecdotes, so let's move on. As mentioned, vegetable oil consumption happens to correlate with diabetes and obesity. But again, we can't get too excited, this is just a correlation. Next, it's well known that the size of an animal relates to how long it will live. The larger an animal, the longer it lives. But there are plenty of outliers. For example, humans can live over 100 years, but based on the size of humans, we should expect a 70-kilogram human to live only 26 years. Also, the 35-gram naked mole rat lives about 5 times longer than we should expect from its size. Then, researchers found another way to predict lifespan that accounts for some of these outliers like humans and the naked mole rat. They found that if the cells of the animals are made up more of the fats that are hard to oxidize or break down, they live longer. If the fats in their cells are easy to oxidize, they don't live as long. And these vegetable oils we're eating are mainly comprised of polyunsaturated fat, which is very easy to oxidize. Unfortunately for us, a 2015 review in the American Society for Nutrition found that the key polyunsaturated fat in vegetable oils, an omega-6 fat called linoleic acid, accumulates and sits in our bodies the more we eat it. The percentage of this linoleic acid in people's fat cells has nearly doubled from a bit under 10% in 1960 to around 20% in 2005. But remember, we were already eating plenty of vegetable oil by 1955.
The next thing I'm going to show you, I searched for 3 years. Do you know what I wanted to know? What was the omega-6 fat in anybody's adipose who was on an ancestral diet?
As Dr. Chris Kenobi discovered, these Pacific Islanders who were eating a diet unadulterated by vegetable oils, the concentration of polyunsaturated linoleic acid in their bodies was only 3.8%, 5 times less than what people are getting today.
3.8% people. This is where we should be. And this is what keeps you healthy.
So, animals that have cells that oxidize easily don't live too long, and we've been eating tons of these easily oxidizing oils. But what data do we have on humans, vegetable oils, and lifespan?